Well, hello, and welcome to this tutorial. Today, we're going to take this awesome website design for an organic community market. I call it the co-op. How unique. And we're going to design it inside of the Wix editor. I'm really excited because I'm going to show you all how to make this website responsive. So without further ado, let's get started. The first thing we want to do when getting started is prepping our site, and we do this by initiating a save. So once we save the site under our site name, which we can change at any time, Wix will then begin to auto-save our progress as we go along. Now that we've initiated the save, we're going to go ahead and customize our page layout. So since this is a one-page design, we can go ahead and get rid of the header and footer just by going to Menu and Pages, heading to the layout, and choosing No Header and Footer. This is a great trick for one-page layouts like landing pages and websites like this. So the next thing we want to do is upload all of our media. Now I've already optimized the images so that they can load faster on the Wix website. And just to keep things organized, I put them in a folder called Assets. And just by holding down Shift and then pressing Open, I can upload all of my images all at one time. And we'll just speed this process up. Now I'm just going to scroll down the box just to make sure that all of my assets have uploaded completely before I exit out. And then I'm just going to move this little line down simply because it gets on my nerves. Now, the next and probably most important piece is customizing your text themes. And this is going to help speed up your workflow tremendously. Now, since I've already designed the website inside of Figma, I already know which headings I'm going to use and which paragraphs I'm going to use for what. So let's dive in and actually start customizing and saving our theme. Now, the font that I'm working with isn't a part of Wix's font offerings, so I uploaded it from Google Fonts. My God, how many times am I going to say font? So once you download your font, you'll usually be able to find it in your downloads folder, but I've already put it into my website assets folder just to stay organized. So once you download it, you'll be able to manage all your fonts here. Now your uploaded font is a part of all of your font offerings. Now it is in alphabetical order under my font, so I'll scroll up to the top, search for McLaren. There you are. And we're all set. Now I'm going to keep the font size at 40 and we're going to save the theme. And there's that nifty little box that helps us when we first get started. And I'll just press Don't Show Again. Now that we've uploaded our font, I'm just going to change all of the headings to their respective settings. But don't worry, I am going to provide all of that information in the description box below. Now we use two different fonts in this design. We use McLaren, and then the second is Roboto-Thin. I love that font. Don't know why, it's just soothing for me. Oh, and while we're in the text box, we can knock out two birds, one stone by adding in our site colors. So we're going to add in 3 colors. And again, that'll be in the description box below, but we're going to add in orange, gold, and one I like to call super beige. I just made that up. I think it sounds kind of cool. Okay, now we're going to make H5 this pretty orange color. And we're also going to bold it. And then we'll save that theme and we'll be moving right along. Now you notice that H6 is a little bit of an anomaly amongst all the other font sizes as it's going to be the largest. We're still using McLaren, but we're going to change the font size to 80. And then we're also going to change the font color to gold. Now, I do want to try to do a text effect and save that theme. We're going to choose text effect B. Now, I'm not 100% that that will save in the theme, but we'll do it together. Let's see what happens. If not, then we'll work it out. And last but not least, we'll change the paragraph to Roboto-Thin with the font size of 18. And then we are all done with our themes. Now, when we go into the text selection, or the text theme selection rather, you'll notice that all of them have changed to whatever we saved our theme to. All of them outside of the color, but that's okay. As long as you're 100% you saved your color theme, it will show up when you put the text onto the canvas. Now by clicking anywhere on the canvas, we can change the page background, and we're going to change it to that super beige color. Now, the last thing we're going to do is lengthen the height of the canvas. We're going to do that by using a strip. A classic strip will do. You can either drag the strip all the way down and increase the height that way, or you can change the Y position and it will automatically scroll down. Now, to make it a little more evident that we're at the bottom of the page, I want to change the strip background. So I'll go to change strip background and the box will pop up, and I'll just change that color to gray. We finished prepping our site and we can actually get started with the design. Now, section 1 involves the header design, and that's the navigation bar and also the header image. So we'll start off with the navigation bar since we got rid of our header and footer, and we'll do that by adding in a strip. Now, strips are quite honestly going to become your best friend in the whole wide world because they're the reason why I'm able to make responsive designs with Wix. Now, for now, I'm going to change the strip background. I'm just going to make it transparent by taking the opacity all the way to 0%. This way it blends seamlessly with the background color. I'm also going to change the height to 112 pixels. I'm going to separate the strip by adding a column with the layouts button. And then I'm going to head back to the layouts and I'm going to change the ratio to 20/80. Now, as I start adding content to the columns, you'll notice why the ratio of 20/80 makes sense for this design. Oh, and there's that pesky but helpful little box. We'll just press don't show again. With column 2 selected, I'm going to change the alignment from the center to the right side. That way, when it's transferred to smaller device sizes, all the content will remain right aligned. As for column 1, we'll keep it in the center. So next things next is adding in our content, and we're going to start with paragraph 1 and drag that over to column 2. And then we'll just move the toolbar down a bit. Now just double click inside of the text box to change the text, and then I'm just going to adjust the size of it. Now I'm going to duplicate my text box 3 times, and I'm just going to make sure that each text box is attached to the column. Anytime you duplicate any content within a column, you will be prompted to attach it just to make sure that it's in there. And then we'll just adjust and edit all of the text inside of the boxes here. Now I'm going to move them in the order that I want them to be in. And I'm just adjusting the spacing. It doesn't have to be exact. Well, the spacing doesn't have to be exact because I'll show you a tool to do that. So to easily align the text, I'll hold Shift and select all of the text. I'll then go to the Distribute button and then choose Horizontal Distribute, or Distribute Horizontally. You get it. And to make sure that everything is in one straight line, I'll go to Align and then Align to Middle. And while I have all of these text boxes in my grasp, I'll go ahead and group them together, and then I'll move them to the right, leaving just a bit of space, but I want to keep it right there. Now the next thing is to go to Media and add in our logo. I just created a simple logo for this design just so that we could, get the feels for the website. And now we can shrink this down. We can either do it manually, but I like to use the width and the height. So I'll change the width to 178 pixels and I'll change the height to 72 pixels. And then we'll attach it to column 1. Now you notice I can't get the full view of where to place a logo because you have the toolbar. So by holding Shift F, we can just toggle the tools right out of view. And at any time, we can toggle them back in by pressing the same button. Okay, great. Now we'll bring our toolbars back in and it's time to add in that header image. So we'll go back to Add and we'll go to Strip. And we'll go to Classic Strip. And then we'll change the height of this strip to 610 pixels. And then we'll change the strip background to an image. Now I'm going to select header image here. Okay, great. And now we have our header image. And you'll notice at the top of the image has a really unique edge to it. And to make sure that the user always sees the top edge of the design, we're going to change the scaling and positioning to top center. Now we're finished with this and we can move on to the next section. All right, gang, moving right along to section 2, which is the About section. Now, here's the design that I did in Figma. And as you can see, we're right on task. And focusing on this About section, we're going to begin with the line break, and then focusing on the text a little bit later. So, first things first, let's get that line break together. So I'll go to Add, and then per usual, we'll add in a classic strip. And then we're going to change that strip background once again to an opacity of 0%. After that, we'll change the height of the strip to 72 pixels. And then we'll change the Y position just to make sure it's in the right place, which is about 817 pixels. Now we'll go to Add, and then we'll go to Shape so that we can add in our line. I'll choose this fairly black thin line here. And then I'll go to Design, or actually I'll go to Stretch first, and I'm going to stretch it to full width. Now you'll notice that it's at the full width of the page, but we need some space here. So how do we do that without separating the line or creating two lines and putting them in different spaces? We do that with margins. So I'm going to change the margins to 35 pixels. And now, as you can see, we have created that space, and that space will show up throughout different screen sizes as well. So that's a cool, nifty little trick. Now we'll add in the line color, or change the line color to black. And then let's keep the line width where it is at 1 pixel. Now I need to create a space for the icon to sit in. And it needs to look like it's a clear space. So a good trick to do this is by using a container box. And we'll change the width and the height to 131 pixels and then 60 pixels respectively. We'll also change the color to match the background of the page, which is that super beige color. Now we could have just decrease the opacity to 0 to create the transparent background. But what would have happened is that when we added the icon, it would look like the icon was sitting on top of the line, and that's not the effect that we want. So now you can see that once we put this icon in, it will immediately look like there's an empty space there. So that's a neat little trick to do. Also, instead of adding two separate lines, we can just have some togetherness, and once it shrinks down to smaller screen sizes, everything will stay in its place. Now the great thing about container boxes is that any content that you add to the box will attach to it, so it's a great way to group things together outside of holding shift and clicking them. A container box is exactly as it sounds, a box that contains things. Thing is to add in our content strip. Now we could go back through all that rigmarole and go to add and add the strip and select the classic strip and then add it to the page, or we can use what we have and work smarter, not harder, and just duplicate this strip where the transparent background has already been set, increase the height of the strip to about 402 pixels, and then we can delete all the content inside of the strip, and then we can move forward with treating this as our written content box. Okay, so let's head over to add, and then we'll start to add in text. So we'll add in our heading 1, and remember there's only one H1 per page, I believe it is. If anyone knows anything different, please let me know in the comments below. I'll learn from you just as much as you learn from me. So once we have our header 1 in place, let's swoop back over because I've already written this. Again, smarter, not harder is my life motto. So I'm just going to copy and paste this, and then I'm going to double click and then Command V. I'm going to double click again, and we're going to align it to the middle. Next, let's add in our description text. So we'll use P1 for that. And let's try and align this to the middle as best we can. And we may have to align it again once we input our actual text. But I want to increase the width of the text box to about 856 pixels. Now I need to add in my filler text, and As you know, we use Lorem Ipsum, and this is actually the website that I use. It's Lorem Ipsum Generator. It's really user-friendly, and I will put the link in the description below. But since I already have the exact text that I want to use, I'll just copy and paste that from Figma and over into Wix here. And to copy and paste, you'll just hit Command-C and then Command-V. I'm going to align this to the middle. And then the next thing we need to do is to input the stats here. I thought this was a pretty fun thing to do. So what we'll go to add, and we'll add in our H6. Now let's see if it took over. Oh no, the effect didn't work, but that's okay. We can add it in really quickly. First, we'll just change our text. I'm going to change this to 100%. Then I'm going to align it to the middle. Shrink that down, move it in place. And actually the strip, somehow the height changed a bit, but I'll just change that back to 412 pixels and we can just keep it rocking and rolling. Okay, I'll move that down a bit. All right, and now double click. I'll go in and I'll choose Text Effects B, exit out of that. And now holding Command D, I will duplicate this 2 more times, and we'll just put these guys in place. The place doesn't matter too much right now because we still haven't edited the text. So we'll change this one to 40, and then we'll change that one to 24. Great, it actually looks like it's in a pretty good place for now. No, I'll move it over a little bit. Okay, that should be good. Okay, now I'm going to align these just as I did in the nav bar. So again, you went to distribute and then distribute horizontally. Okay, and then I'll add in an H4. And that's just the text underneath the stats. I'm going to align it to the middle, and then I'm just going to type in the text. Organic and pesticide free. Now I think organic already means there are no pesticides, so please no judgments if I'm writing basically organic and organic. And if you caught what I just did, we just, same old, Command D duplication twice, and then we'll just change that text. Okay, and once we change all the text, we are set to move on to the next section, which are the features. Now here we are in our next section, which is the features. Now looking at our Figma design, it does look complicated, and it was, but it was easy to put it into Wix. Now make sure you design outside of Wix, whether that's Figma, Sketch, or Adobe XD, because it's going to make your life so much easier. Now we're duplicating the line break because we already made it, and the only thing we need to change is the icon. So clicking on the icon and then pressing change, we can choose an image and it will conform to whatever the original image was. Now we're going to duplicate this content strip once again. We're going to move that down. I'm just showing you different ways to move the strips. You can either do it manually or you can use the Y-axis and type in the pixels if you know them already. I don't need any of this written content inside of the strip, so I'm going to select it all, hold shift, and then just delete. Now I'm going to toggle back in my tools, my sidebar tools, and I'm going to change the height of the strip to about 624 pixels. Now I know what to change the height to because of my Figma design. Again, I cannot stress enough, please design outside of Wix, guys, and use Wix as a development tool. Now for this strip, all I've done, just like the header image, is add an image to the background of the strip. Now, piece of honesty, with this strip background here, it was really trial and error when designing it in Figma. I always design with Wix in mind. Wix, don't steal that. No, you can have it. But it really was trial and error. I would go back and forth and, save the site and publish it and check it out on different screen sizes just to see how it would shrink down until I was happy with it. And to be quite honest, a lot of design is really trial and error and seeing what works. And if it doesn't work, then you go back and you fix it. So at this point, I'm just going back and forth to my design and then back to Wix. Again, I have already typed out a lot of this jazz, so I'm just going to copy and paste. I need to save some time because I already spent a lot of time designing this. Things need to start getting a little bit easier for me, which is why I love using Wix. Okay, so we've added in our text, we've added in our H4, we've added in our H2. Again, we're no longer using H1, and now we're going to add in our line shape. So using our toolbar, we changed the width pixel to 72, and now we're just going to edit the line. So we'll change that color to gold. I think that'll complement it pretty nicely. And then we're going to increase that line width to about 2. So now we'll add in our paragraph, and we're only using paragraph 1 for this. This is the only paragraph theme that we're going to use for this design. We're going to make it just really simple, just so you understand how to make a site responsive with Wix, and to also learn some tips and tricks along the way, even if you've been using Wix for a long time. Also, as we switch back and forth and just copying and pasting here, I do want to let you all know that I got these images from Envato Market. The link to those images will be below. I do have a subscription with them, so I did have to pay for these images. I wish I could offer them to you for free, but I just love Envato Market. There's so many incredible designers, so many incredible resources. It'll truly, truly step up your design game, so I will recommend them 1,000 times. Now what we're going to do is adjust the leading, which is the line spacing. So we can do that in the text editor, and we're just going to change that to 1.4. That looks pretty good. We'll stick with that. So now we'll add in our button. We'll go to add and then the button tab, and we'll drag the button that says back to top into our featured product strip. So we'll align that to the best of our abilities. And then we're going to go in and we're going to customize the design of the button. So we'll start the adjustment by adjusting the border, and we're going to change the border width to 1 pixel, and then we'll keep it at black. That's good. Now let's go in and adjust the corner radius. So we'll change the corner radius to 3, and since this little icon is toggled, it would have changed all of them, but if you untoggle it, you can change it one by one, as you see I just did. So we'll change it back to 3, and then we'll go in and we'll edit the text. We're going to change this text from Avenir to Roboto-Thin. Mr. Roboto, there you are. And we'll keep it at 13 pixels, and then let's bold it though. That looks better. Okay, now let's change the hover state. So we're going to change the appearance of how it looks on hover. Now I don't want to change the text color, but I do want to change the fill color. We're going to change that to gold. So anytime you hover over the button or you're attempting to click on the button, it will change to that nice gold color. Now we can go in and we can change the text. We'll change it to explore the product. That sounds good. That sounds more intriguing than a learn more. It gives the user a better idea of what they're about to learn. So we changed the width to about 180 pixels, and then we're just going to realign that. Okay, that looks good. Now to make our life so much easier, we're going to select all of this content, including the line and the button, and we're going to group it together, and we're going to move it to probably the middle of the strip. And luckily I have my snap to objects on so that I can see where those ruler lines are going to be. Now we have it grouped. We can duplicate this strip, and then we're going to drag it down. Okay, so we're going to move this to about there, and then I'm going to grab this group and I'm going to move it over to the right, just in anticipation of the image that I'm going to upload, which is the Grape Harvest image. And you'll notice that the space in that image is more so to the right side. So now let's just adjust this a bit. And then we're just going to change the text, sort of starting from the top to the bottom. Now, if you'd like me to do a tutorial on how I created this UI design in Figma, I am more than happy to do it. Just put it in the comments. And now we're just going to change the button. We'll change it to Explore the Farm. And then you're able to add a link. I don't have any links to add to it yet, only because this is just a simple one-page design and an example, but I'll just change it to the home page. So if you click it, it'll most likely either stay right here or it would probably go to the top of the page. But that's it for this section. Let's move on. Okay, here we are at the next section, which is the products showcase. So let's check out this design in Figma. I really love this part of the design, mostly because I love to use columns. So I'm going to show you the real power of columns. So first things first, let's get our strip going. So we're just going to head back up to the top just a little bit. I'm going to select this strip, duplicate it, and I'm going to bring it down to Y position about 2906. That's probably not exact, but we can move it up to wherever we need to. And now we need our content strip. So again, instead of doing it the roundabout way, we'll just use a strip that already has the content layout we need. So we'll choose the About strip. We'll change that Y position. We'll head back down to meet it. And then let's delete the stat since we don't need it. So we deleted all of that. Let's close the gap in the strip. We'll adjust that height. And then let's head back over to our Figma design and see what we need to copy over. So let's highlight our text here, slide over to Wix. And before we copy and paste, this is still a heading 1 and we need to change it to a heading 2. So as you can see, it changed the font size and then we can copy it all in and it's exactly the way we need it to be. So now it's time to actually start making the columns. So I'm going to duplicate this strip and then I'll just drag it down. Like so. And then I'm going to adjust the height to about 636 pixels. Great, and then let's just delete all the content here. Now the key to adding columns, if you remember when we did the nav bar, we went to layouts and then added a column. Now when you're adding more than 2 columns, you'll have to then go to manage columns in order to add any additional ones because layout then turns into sort of a column ratio hub. Now you can add up to 5 columns per strip, but for this one we only need 3. So now we'll add the images to the columns. So they downloaded a little bit all over the place. So by holding Command, I can grab images all over and add all 3 to the page at one time. Now the images were placed on the canvas, but they're not inside of the strip yet, and at this size they won't fit. So I'm going to scale them down to a width of 308 pixels and a height of about 421 pixels. So I'm just going to start scaling them down one by one and dragging the images into the columns. And the one thing I do want to keep in mind when dragging them in is making sure that they're aligned in the center and that they're also aligned horizontally with each other. You'll notice that there's quite a bit of spacing in between each image inside of the columns, and so I'm going to change that by changing the column layouts. So I'm bringing them closer to the center, but when it's scaled down to smaller device sizes, this won't mess up the layout. Just when we're either scaling up or scaling down, I want the images to still, look uniform and not look so spread out across the page. The next piece is adding in the written content. So for this, I'll use a header 3, and then I'm going to grab in a paragraph as well. So now let's sweep back over to the design. We're just going to copy and paste the paragraph. Then we'll align that. Right, I try and make it look, if not exact, at least extremely similar to the mockup that I created in Figma. And I'm just going to type in the titles. Now, one thing to keep in mind when we're copying and pasting things from one strip to another, you can hold Shift and select more than one element, but in order for it to attach to a column, they must be grouped together. So don't be surprised if you're just trying to drag some things in that aren't grouped together and they're just not attaching. That's the reason why. Okay, so that was it for this section, and now we can move on to some harder stuff. Here we are on to the next section. We are almost done. And I'm going to show you how to make the best use of a slideshow. Now, this is the online ordering section, and I'm sure you're wondering how we're going to make those images happen. So first things first, let's get the line break in there. But I did forget to change this icon, and it's supposed to be these cute little chilies. But now we can duplicate this and we can bring it down to the bottom. Change the y-axis on that to 3681 and we'll meet it. Perfect. And now we'll change this. I think this one is, I think it's the barley again. Oh no, it's the parsley. Okay, so before we get started with the slideshow, let's bring in the description strip. So we'll copy and paste this. And let's change that y-axis to 3695. Probably have to drag it down a bit. As we're getting ready for the slideshow, I want to share with you how amazing this tool is. And I think we don't give it enough time to play around and really see how we can push our limits, because the slideshow has truly helped me make a lot of my designs responsive, and it's helped me be really flexible with Wix. So to get started with that, we'll go to add and we'll head up to gallery. Now there's tons of different galleries, but for this one we're going to use the Showcase Pro gallery, and we'll just drag that right in. And now you'll see it auto-populate with some default images, and we'll align it to the center. Now what I want to do is stretch it to full width, just like the line did. And you can add margins, but for this purpose, I wanted to drag across the entire width of the screen. I'm just going to drag it down a little bit, but I'm going to change the height to 243 pixels. And you notice that the images have reshaped. And that's exactly what we want. Now we can get rid of this by going to Manage Media. And if you go to Select All and then Delete, perfect. So we'll add an image. You can also add in videos, which is cool as well. But for this one, we're gonna add in 5 images per row. So we're gonna have 2 different slideshows because I want them to move at different times. So holding Command, I'm going to add in the first 5 sort of product items that I see. And I want this to be continuous, and since they're pretty small, I'm going to add in the same 5 once again, just to make sure that there's enough of them to take up the space for the entire width. Now you can change the title, you can add a description, you can even add a link to any one of these assets. So keep that in mind for some future designs, because who knows, you know, there's no limit, obviously. Well, I'm sure there are limits. The limit does exist. Shout out to Mean Girls. So it's kind of stretched itself back out, but we'll just change the height back to, I think it was 243 pixels, and perfect, they've stretched themselves down. Now here comes the tedious work. So we'll go to settings here, and this is really where we get to play around with the look and the movement of the slideshow. So heading to layout first, we'll customize it. And we're going to toggle on loop images, and we're going to toggle on slide automatically. And I want to change the time between the images to 3 seconds, not 30. 3 seconds. There we go. I don't need to toggle on title or description for this. And we're going to leave the thumbnail size at fit and not cropping it to the box because that will ruin the design. And I'm going to change the spacing between each to 40. So now we'll head to settings. Now you see when clicking on an item, I don't want it to do anything, so I will toggle nothing happens. I also don't want it to download or any social sharing, so I'll leave those toggled off. And then I'm going to toggle off the heart icon so that when people hover, nothing happens. Now this shows you what you can do with the design. So when you do hover, there could be a color overlay, but we're going to turn that off. And then I don't want any arrows, and the smallest size we can go is 8. And then I want to show you what this does. So if you change it to the navigation arrows being outside of the gallery, it creates this space in between. And for the purposes of this design, that's not what we want. So we're going to keep it toggled at inside gallery. And that's why we've shrunk the arrows so that the user can't see them. And then they have some other overlay effects that you can explore. But heading to advanced, if there were some videos, then we could do some pretty cool settings there. Or you can increase the image quality. Sometimes when you do increase the image quality, it also slows down the speed a bit. So just be careful with that. And then I just wanted to show you what it would look like to sort of change some of the image settings when you would hover over, but we'll just keep it at no effect. And for this, while the image is loading, I'd rather it be a blurred image than a blank color. And there you have it. So now we'll just duplicate that and we'll slide it down. And we've already set our settings for 1. So the only thing we need to do is add in our images 2 times. And then we'll just adjust the height and the settings are there. Easy peasy. Now, I wish I could show you in a preview, but a lot of times the slider won't slide in the preview. You'll have to publish it and then go to View Live Site. Not a big deal. I usually have the live site already up in another tab at all times, and I'll just press refresh. So the next part of this is just the online order button. So for that portion, I'm just going to duplicate this description box. It has the height that I like. So I'll just drag that down, and then I'll delete the content inside. And then we're going to add in text. And I believe it's an H4. No, it's an H5 that I'm adding in that has the orange. Just copied in the text from the design. We'll adjust and align accordingly. And if you didn't know this, once you create a button, it'll usually save in My Buttons, which is great. So if you don't feel like going all the way up to the top to grab and copy and paste your button, it'll be saved in your buttons in the buttons options. And now all we need to do is change the text. Okay, so there we have it for section 5. We inputted our text, and now we can move on to the very last part. It is the footer. Let's do this. Okay, this is it. We have reached the end, the last section, which is the footer. And this is obviously very, very easy. I didn't want to make the footer too crazy, because we usually know what a footer looks like, but I thought I'd still keep it in theme. So per usual, we'll get that line break and we'll drag it down. And this last one for the icon does coincide with the first one, which is the barley. So we'll put that in place, we'll drag it up. Now, I'm not sure if I forgot to say this, but hopefully throughout this tutorial, as you are designing, although Wix does autosave, I hope you continue to press save periodically just to make sure that all of your progress doesn't go to waste. Just to take that extra step to press save every now and again may end up saving your life. Oh, and look, our gray strip was there at the bottom, so we knew we were at the end. I just changed strip background. Now here, this is why it's so important to make the strip background color, whether it's an image there or not, and make it transparent. Because as you can see, we can still see the gray through the photo, or through the image rather. So let's change that. We can go to strip background. We'll go to settings. Or actually, you can click this little folder behind and you can change it to any color you like. Now, depending on what kind of background you have, if it's a plain color background, then that's totally fine. You can blend it in. But if not, and it's maybe has a pattern on the background, then you just want to make it transparent. And just like the header image, we wanted to put the positioning at the top center. So great, now we're in good shape. And last but not least, we're going to add in our logo. Now, I could put the logo inside of a strip, but since it's large and it's also an image, it's not such a big deal. There's really just this one piece to it. If there were multiple parts of the logo, or if I wanted to add any more accoutrements to the image, then I would have put it into a strip, but it's not super necessary. Okay, so that's it. I press save and we are done with this one-page design. So this is our organic community market called the Co-op. And this has been fun. Thanks for sticking around for this long tutorial. But I hope you learned a lot, some tips and tricks about Wix along the way. I love Wix. As you can see, you can do some really cool and even advanced designs. You just have to learn how to work around any limitations. But there comes limitations with any web building or development platform. Sometimes there's a learning curve, and some of us think that there's no learning curve to Wix.